Thank you. So if you haven't already, there's still time if you got the QR code to submit questions. But I want to start with a question for you, Ethan, before I turn it to the audience. From a capital allocation perspective, how should leaders think about investing in AI adoption while also investing in workforce transition? And how do we identify the balance between those two?
So I'd add a third element, which is R&D. I think organizations have to invest. If there's ever a time to spend money on R&D, it's now. And organizational R&D, stuff we don't typically do. You're going to have teams trying new techniques for using stuff that may not work. And you have to be running experiments that might fail. That is a cost, right? You're going to pull your best people off the line and have them do new things. And I've been hearing great Wharton alumni talk about some of these experiments, right? And so that is part of what you need to be able to do. So in terms of allocation, just adopting without changing anything isn't going to get you very far. Right? So I think that you need all those elements together. We don't have a clear model for what adoption looks like. And if it's just adoption at the individual level, you'll end up having bottlenecks inside your company. You don't want 1,000 PowerPoints. So I think you need to, it's management attention as well.
I spent a lot of time working with executives and listening to what they describe as the changing workforce, and they recognize that the skills that they need coming into their organization will be different, but they don't know how to articulate what those skills are. Help us understand what, for example, we should be doing at Wharton to prepare this group of students for what's out there.
I wish I had all the answers. The 4 things I tend to focus on are deep knowledge, wide knowledge, taste, and agency. Right? So deep knowledge is you should know a field deeply enough that you can have judgment calls about this. It's great. AI agents are incredible if you have enough of a sense of what you want to do that you can assign them tasks, and when they come back, you're like, that's not quite right. I know how to fix it. If you're in that shape, you will be the most productive you've ever been in your life because your deep knowledge lets you make quick judgment calls rather than spending an hour reviewing every AI answer. Wide knowledge, because now you can do things you couldn't do before. Boundaries have changed within firms. I don't want you to just know accounting. I want you to know about accounting and management and psychology. And the more you know, the better off you are, right? So those are 2 things we do at Wharton, deep and wide. I think the other piece is agency, right? Which is what we try and teach in entrepreneurship. You can do more things now than you could before. So what do you want to do? If you're just waiting for instructions, which is something I don't think we typically associate with Wharton, but a lot of people just wait for instructions. I think you're in trouble. And then taste, you're going to have to make some judgment calls about what works and what doesn't. I asked you to pick which one of those 10 ideas you liked best. Those become consequential choices when you could just turn those ideas into businesses. Having a good sense of taste or your own developed identity can really help.
I'm curious, because you're a parent, you have kids. How do you talk to them about this world and what they should be preparing for?
So the easy stuff is talking about how your kids should use AI today. The hard stuff is what do we do next? And I wish I had an easy answer where I'm like, oh yeah, I know. Nobody, every bet you make that's over 3 years from now or even the next few years is about how good you think AI is going to get, how fast. That's what that bet comes down to. And nobody has any answers for you, and nobody even knows what it means for the job market for this to happen. So I tend to tell people, this seems I did a lot of work with Matthew Bidwell, who some of you might know, who's a career researcher. And a lot of the work that comes out of the career work, and Peter Capelli and people like that, a lot of that work is about how careers are long and change a lot. So I think resilience is going to be key. The job you're going into was never going to be the job you're going to end up in. That's even going to be more true in the future. So I have a kid who wants to be a doctor, a kid who wants to be a lawyer. Those are in one way jobs that are really targeted, but they're also jobs that are very diverse with many different kinds of things you do. Of course, the other option I just tell people is just go into a regulated industry. That's the other choice. So.
Great, thanks. This is a question from the audience. What is the greatest example of an automated workflow that you've seen?
Okay, so the craziest thing, just to show you how far reinvention can go, there's a company called StrongDM that pioneered something they called the software dark factory. And so if you know about a dark factory, the whole idea is if I have a wholly robotic factory, I don't need lights because there'll be no human in the factory. This is a software dark factory using AI agents. They had 2 rules. No human can ever look at the code, and no human can ever touch the code. So the goal was you have to spend $1,000 on tokens, on AI cost per engineer per day, and the system would just not only churn out the software, but then it built its own fake Slack and Salesforce and everything else to test the software, and it would put personas in and run through it, and then it would churn out software package after software package that was ready to go, right? So the most radical version is, what do? You just direct a thing to go, you turn the machine on, and it makes things happen.
And that can happen in what period of time?
They were getting, they invented this, and within a month it was up and running.
Again, I'm still feeling exhausted. It seems that a daily occurrence that we hear now is how AI is present in every facet of business. I think you made that abundantly clear. In the same way, we've also heard stories about firms where AI integration seems to have stalled. Are there organizational capabilities that distinguish companies capable of extracting real value from AI from those that fail?
Yeah, so all of you, if you're in the right place, you're like me and you have imposter syndrome, you should. Like everyone's making this up right now. We have no playbook to run. There's no consulting company you could hire who knows you how, tell you how to do an AI implementation. There's no one example. It's an experimentation process. I find that the most important capability is actually leaders who are willing to take risk. So taking one of our own great alumni, Nikolai Tangen, who I've talked to about this before, he runs a Norwegian sovereign wealth fund, the biggest pool of money on the planet. He personally overcame all of his risk managers to say we need to get AI in use. Whenever you go to a meeting with him, he asks you how you use AI to do something. He put AI training in, not because he thought the training was that useful, but because it made people put hands on keyboards. When I last talked to him a few months ago about this, he said 50% of his people are writing code now, right? And only 20% of his office is coders. Like, there is a transformation that leadership is the key to making this happen. Leadership lab and crowd. You have to set up rules for making this happen. It can't just be AI gets implemented and something occurs. And if you just say increase productivity, congratulations, you're going to get a ton of work slop. Like everyone's just going to produce 10 times more generic memos. That's not how to make things happen. So this is more than ever the time for MBA leadership. What process are you actually trying to do? How are you trying to accomplish it? How do you rebuild your organization? Those are the defining questions.
So I have a hypothetical for you. Imagine, Ethan, that you are a dean of a prominent business school in the Northeast, and you have a well-regarded reputation in both industry and academia. You have an incredible faculty that produces wonderful research, super, super talented students, and there's a paralysis in the organization about AI. As dean, what would you do in the first 30, 90, 120 days?
Okay, so I would give you the same advice I give CEOs about this stuff, which is first of all, you actually do need an R&D center. There needs to be a set of people who are kind of doing work and presenting you options. So it doesn't fall on your hands. And you know who those people are. They're annoying people like me who've already been coming to you. And there's tons of people in your organization who I talk to all the time who are like, I'm using AI to do this stuff. Get them in a lab and get them doing work for you is one piece. You need that advisory role. You also should be doing something that is impossible or enters a new market. Try something completely new. We've talked before, I think that there's going to be a huge crisis, we haven't even talked about this, inside organizations, right? Because I teach people to be generalists at Wharton, especially for undergrads, right? They become specialists by working for you guys. They become your interns. And if you've probably noticed, right, we teach you interns, so how do they become experts? The same way we've taught experts for 5,000 years, which is apprenticeship. And that all broke this summer because every intern is using AI to give you results. The most depressing thing I heard from a CHRO actually was they said, oh, these AI native kids are so good. I'm like, you're not talking to an AI native kid. You're talking to Claude. They're just pasting every question into Claude and handing you the answer. That's not an AI native. That is just Claude. And so, like, that isn't right. And all your middle managers stop giving tasks to interns who sometimes cry when they could just give it to the AI. Right? And so nobody's learning anything. So I think one thing we should be thinking about is how do we extend what we do? So I'd be doing something expansionary. And then I'd be also thinking about how do we get a few success cases inside the organization? I've seen some very large companies, some of the Fortune 10, experiment with pulling their best engineers off the line, putting them with their best subject matter expert and saying build something impossible in 2 weeks. Right? And they replace an 80-person team doing the work. So I'd be trying to do both the sort of gradual change management that we always teach, expanding in some radical way, and also trying something really experimental inside.
Ladies and gentlemen, meet the new Senior Vice Dean of R&D at the Wharton School. So talk to me about, you have now, because of your co-intelligence book, you're on the speaker circuit. You're talking to all sorts of companies, all sorts of industries. What industries do you see are supercharged in doing this work really well, and what industries do you think are lagging?
So one thing that actually surprised me is every industry has leaders in it, right? Like I have been impressed by financial services. There's some companies completely stalled out. I've spent some time with places like JP Morgan Chase, and they're all in, like Jamie, and partially because the leadership is in, and Mary Erdos, who runs the private banking division's all in on this, and I see transformation happening there. And it's the same in every industry. Like, you name regulated, like Moderna is doing insane work right now on AI stuff, and they're in a highly regulated industry, right? So it's not just one thing or another. It really tends to be leadership, a willingness to take risks, and realize this is a big deal. And so I don't actually think that, like, this is a general purpose technology. In fact, the weirder your industry is, and the less it seems like AI would be applicable, the more you should be doing AI stuff, because the more advantage you can get. I've been talking with Klee, who runs the AI lab at Colgate-Palmolive. There's a nice Wall Street Journal piece on him. And he just has built, like, they're building things that you basically, it generates ideas and builds the full prototype for you while you're in a meeting. Like, there's a lot of radical ability here, and the weirder your field is, the better off it is. So I'm not actually seeing differences in industry as much as you might expect. I'm seeing differences in companies.
And thinking within an organization, a company, there are multiple generations. So you've got the Gen Z, you've got the millennials, you've got the boomers, you've got Gen X, et cetera. How are they reacting differently across generations to this work? And how does a CEO manage all of those differences around this issue?
So the first thing I usually say is you should know that generational labels are absolutely meaningless. Like, they don't actually mean anything. There's no statistical effect from generational labels, right? There is some kind of cohort effects. You've gone through an experience together, but like the actual labels of Gen Z versus millennial literally mean nothing at all and are not valuable for any decision making, right? But that being said, junior versus senior people, it's a really interesting situation. I think people have this mental model of technology, which is, again, junior people will figure this out. That is not what's happening in this case, because they ask for a report, the report looks good. You have 30 years of experience, you ask for a report, and you're like, oh, I actually know whether this is good or bad at once. So I think this is about everybody doing this together. Some people seem to be very good at this, some people not. Like, there's some really interesting studies. Now that we move into like the agentic world, there's a paper by Alex Imus, who's not at Wharton, although his wife is, so that's good. So at least you have a relationship. But like he did an experiment where he had people create AI agents for negotiation. And he found that the variance between people actually increased hugely when they created agents, because the agents negotiate with each other. So being a little good at agents, better than anyone else, created this huge multiplier advantage. Mm-hmm. And one of the interesting things was you couldn't tell who necessarily would be good at this in advance. And in most studies, and we've done a lot of work on gender and negotiation at Wharton. I have some papers myself. Women underperform men in negotiation in most cases. For agents, women creating agents outperform men for negotiation. Like, the agents that the women created were better than ones created by men. We don't know why. Right? So there's a whole bunch of new opportunities and things that I think having the traditional barrier, like lines of like, well, the young people figured out, there is no AI native, because what does that mean? Like, the skills are changing so quickly. If you learned all the prompting tricks, like I don't know if you've been to like an AI like course, but you probably learned like prompting techniques, like chain of thought prompting. Does it sound familiar to anybody here? Or like using personas? We've been testing this generative AI lab that I run. None of them work anymore. Like, they don't matter. The AI models are all good enough that it doesn't matter. Like, those techniques don't matter. So what are you supposed to be learning? Experience often helps more than anything else.
Yeah. When you look out 5 years from now, how is the world different because of AI?
So it's hard to know exactly. I think if you look at like a week and a half ago, right, there was a week where a few things happened at once. There was a famous like viral report on markets like DoorDash and SAS going away that actually moved markets for a couple of days, right? It's a Trini report. There was a company called Block announced 60% layoffs because of AI, and then the Pentagon got into a fight with Anthropic, all in 1 week, right? Now, the Citrini report was completely science fiction. Nobody knows what's going to happen, but it woke up a bunch of people to AI is real. The Block thing was 100% not AI. It was just firing people and blaming it on AI, which you'll see. And who knows what happened with the Pentagon. But like, that kind of rolling disruption is only going to get more common, right? If you talk to coders right now, coding has changed in the last 3 months radically enough that they can't see what it looks like before. Some people are mourning, some people are excited. The best coders I talk to, and I speak to a lot of the world's best folks in this, they don't touch code anymore, or they touch code only 1% of the time. The AI writes the code for them. That is an incredibly radical change in industry in 3 months. We're going to see rolling waves of disruption that are going to change what people are valuable for, what work they do, and I can't predict which ones are going to hit next and in what ways.
So you can't predict that, but can you predict which of the different companies, AI companies, are going to succeed and be around 5 years from now, and which ones won't?
So that's hard to, so again, your bet is on how good, how fast. All the AI company, so there's really, the 3 companies in the lead are OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google, right? And I have opinions on all of them, but like all 3 of those they're the most ahead, and they're the ones that have the best labs doing the most work. Everybody else, the Chinese labs are all 8 or 9 months behind, and their models the open weights models are all, they have issues.
How can you tell that? Like, what are you looking at to determine where they are relative to the
So
US?
there's a lot of people benchmarking stuff, right? All the benchmarks are bad, but they correlate at like 0.9. So like even though they're all bad, they're measuring something. It's sort of like some underlying test of ability that we're kind of getting at. I also use these models. We talk to people doing them. There's if you're close to the space, this is a pretty universally held view, right? And there is like one French company that's a little bit behind that, and then there's a couple of US also rans like X and Meta that might catch up, but we don't know. But really, it's those 3 organizations. So the bet becomes, will they keep getting better or not? If they keep getting better along the exponential, no one's going to catch them, because all 3 companies have reported having some degree, and this is kind of scary too, to talk about, of recursive self-improvement. They're all using their AI systems to make their AI systems better. And once that starts happening, it gets hard to catch them. So the question is, are we going to hit a limit of what AI can do? Nobody knows. If we do, then the rest of the world catches up, and those 3 companies don't matter as much, and all that investment becomes less important. If they keep with takeoff the way they expect, we end up with a very different world, and one of those 3 wins, and we don't know who.
I'm almost afraid to ask this question, but when you think about the future, what excites you?
I mean, a lot. I spent, thank you to donors out there in Wharton. I ran something called Wharton Interactive for a while, which was an attempt to build, and a lot of you may have played my games, right? And hundreds of thousands of people around the world did. And those were simulations designed to teach business at scale. So I've always been interested, how do we extend our reach? We have MOOC courses. It's always been a thing Wharton's trying to do. And there's stuff showing that even a small amount of entrepreneurship education changes people's lives. It increases, like in Uganda, people who got a 3-week entrepreneurship course were 14% more profitable. And now we know that actually there's a study that just using GPT-4 for advice alone made high-performing entrepreneurs more profitable than before. We have this ability now, scalability that we can, the kinds of simulations that took us millions of dollars and years of effort to build. We literally gave the instruction manual from one of our old simulations to the AI, and it built the entire simulation for us, right? And that was a 14-person team taking 2 years to do. I am so excited by the idea that we can extend capabilities to wider swaths of people. Opportunity gets to increase. Also, lots of our jobs suck. If you can give parts of the job that suck to the AI so you can do the thing that gave you joy in what you're doing in the first place, that's also wonderful. And also, by the way, this can be a liberating force, an exciting force for lots of things. So there's lots of good in this also. I think just being from a fear-based perspective is a problem. Nothing's inevitable. We get to decide how this plays out.
Yeah. I was reading Reid Hoffman's book lately, and he has 4 different types of people in respect to their relationship to AI. Doomers, gloomers, zoomers, and...
I forget the last one, but it rhymes too.
It rhymes.
Yeah. There's a chance to answer the question. You get points.
Boomers?
Yeah, we'll go with it. You still get that. If we don't know the answer, you still get the A, so it's fine. That's, I have to pretend I was like, yes, that's right, good.
So let's imagine, since we can't think of the last one, that there are 3, but sort of those who think AI is going to doom us, and those who think AI is the best thing in the world, and then some category in the middle. Where would you proportion most people in the country?
I think everyone's confused. I'm willing to bet for the vast majority of you, you saw stuff today you didn't think AI could do. Because that's what happens every time I give these talks. A few of you are completely up to speed, but that's normally where it is. And I can't keep up. I have 4 things I have to test out in the next couple of days to just understand what they do. That video capability, that was the first time I created a video using Notebook LM, because that capability just came out. So I think everyone's confused. I think that people are worried. I think that people rightfully don't trust corporate leaders alone to make decisions, but we don't know how we're going to work with government to make the right decisions on things. I think there's a lot of uncertainty. And I think we're doing a bad job as business people convincing people that this is going to be good for the world because we haven't given the vision. I would like more leaders to come forward and say, here's how we make the world better with AI. I've been impressed by, for example, Walmart versus Amazon. Amazon has sort of had these scary memos, like we're going to fire a lot of people because of AI work. And Walmart said they were going to try and keep everybody and figure out how to expand with their jobs work. I don't know whether they'll succeed or not, but I think that more visions that are around how do we grow and keep things would sound a lot better than, yes, we're going to cut 30% of our staff thanks to our 30% productivity gain.
Yeah, thank you. Ethan, there are a lot of places where you could choose to spend your time, but thank you for choosing to spend it at Wharton. We're really glad to have you.
It's not a choice. This is the best place in the world for it.
You heard it here first. So. All right, thank you, Ethan.